Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Let me see who's in here. Thanks for being here. I'm really happy to see you and to see that you guys carved out time for this evening. I'm really excited that this event is happening right here in North Bend, Washington, in North Bend Theater, because I've been thinking about it for quite a long time now. This evening does not happen in isolation. A lot of work goes into an event like this, so I'd like to take just a moment to thank those who helped make it possible. Of course, the North Bend Theater, Skylar, has been really important to helping make this come true tonight. Christian Glennon, who is helping with the AV, you've probably seen him up and around, and you might see him more. Thank you to both of you. Also, Christian's helping us to film this, so we will be able to post it on our YouTube channel. And the first person that subscribes to our YouTube channel, which is Boldly Went, gets bonus points. I'd also like to thank who I call the Dream Team, and that is Julie Casada, Brooke Jones, Melissa Christensen, Heidi Flora, Kari Vigorstol, and Calista Salazar, who helped with the organization of this event. So my name is Angel Mathis, and you're going to hear a lot about me tonight. I think that's all I need to say. First of all, who remembers the first Grit and Grace? Yeah, that was a really fun and inspiring event that featured 4 unbelievable female pioneers of outdoor adventure. And I'm happy to report to you that those 4 women continue to go strong. Liz Kellogg was a 65-year-old grandma who shared her story of running through motherhood and how she still regularly finishes 100-milers. Here she is out on a hiking trip. Cherie Pompeo, a 62-year-old who shared her stories of running at least a marathon every month, and she is keeping up her streak of marathoning around the world. Here she is running in an Egyptian marathon. Carmelita Lagerwell, a 72-year-old who shared her experiences seeking out big adventures in sea kayaking, running, and cycling, and she continues to enjoy cross-country skiing. And Helen Thayer, who is a National Geographic explorer who shared her breath-holding story of when she encountered polar bears while being the first person ever to ski to the North Pole. And you can keep up with her through her adventureclassroom.org. I heard from attendees for months about how that event inspired new adventures, and this was true for me too. I left to walk the 2,650-mile Pacific Crest Trail within a month of the first Grit and Grace. And just to clarify, I had the PCT planned before Grit and Grace, so even though those women did not inspire that specific adventure, they provided me with months of inspiration while I was on the trail. I am not joking when I tell you that when you walk all day, every day, for 5 months straight, even when surrounded by beautiful scenery like this, Mount Jefferson Wilderness in Oregon, you search for things to think about. I repeatedly found myself thinking of these amazing women featured at Grit and Grace. After the first Grit and Grace, some of the audience shared with me that they felt as though women had to sacrifice their families in order to follow their grand adventure dreams. I thought about that a lot on the trail, and this was definitely not a message that I had intended to deliver through the first Grit and Grace. I felt then and feel now that prioritizing adventure within a family is possible. It simply was not the story that we were telling that evening in 2015. I thought of a family who I'd met on a running pilgrimage along the Camino de Santiago in Spain, a French family of 4, a mom, dad, a 3-year-old, an 18-month-old, and a donkey. Whereas my husband, Tim, and I were doing only the 500-mile Spanish portion of the trail, the French family had also walked the French portion of the trail, adding an additional 460 miles. And it made me question if having kids was actually a superpower. On the PCT in 2015, we met this family of 4 who were hiking a mom, dad, 11-year-old, and 9-year-old, known up and down the trail as the Ravens. When we met them ourselves, we were surprised by how much fun the kids were having. The 9-year-old daughter, June, told me the reasons why she really liked being on the trail. She didn't have to shower, 1. 2, she didn't have to go to school. It was a surprise to find that at the end of the day, when the adults would drop their packs and collapse of exhaustion, the kids ran off into the woods to play more. Then last year, when I hiked south on a section of the PCT, I met this mom and son duo who were hiking more than 20 miles a day. So here we are at Grit and Grace 2 with 2 spectacular adventure families. 8 speakers in total, all from right here where we live. The first family to inspire us is the Martin Wade family. Amy Martin, mother of 4, told me that she dreamt of hiking the 2,169-mile Appalachian Trail with her own mom and dad when she read an article about the AT at age 13. She was not able to convince her mom, dad, and siblings to go, so she set her sights on having a family of her own and hiking the AT with them. Good plan. At the time she and her children set foot on the AT, she had been planning the trip for more than 30 years. Amy had a vision. She took her kids hiking from a young age in a backpack on her back. Her long-term plan, now long past, was to have 3 children, and she set her sights on hiking the AT when her 3rd child would turn 4. Then she found out she was pregnant for the 3rd time with twins. She adjusted her plan and decided that she would wait to hike until they turned 6 because hiking with 4-year-old twins seemed like it would be a bit too much. Cedric and Duncan came along, her 3rd and 4th children, but it wasn't as straightforward as that. When Amy was 16 weeks pregnant with them, her healthcare provider told her that they had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. This picture shows that. This means that one baby got most of the nutrition and blood flow from the mom and grew really well, while the second baby didn't get much at all. The second baby would be really small, and there was a high chance that baby number 2 would not live. Cedric and Duncan were born at 27 weeks, 3 months early. When Cedric was born, he weighed 1.5 pounds. That's less than this muddy boot weighed. Whoops. Did I skip it? Oh, okay. Okay, so it's hard to imagine looking at you guys that one of you were weighing less than that. Duncan only weighed 3 pounds. Cedric couldn't breathe on his own, and he had 18 conditions that made it hard for him to live up until he was 3 months old. Now Cedric and Duncan are healthy 10-year-olds and 4th graders at Queen Anne Elementary School. And Amy tells me that they love the wilderness more than candy. Cedric, also known as Roadkill, sorry, this is Cedric. No, that's Duncan. Sorry, this is Cedric. Cedric, also known as Roadkill, is famed for his expert rhododendron climbing abilities and beginning snowboard techniques. He is a showman and a dancer. When he grows up, he has his sights set on show business. Duncan, also known as High Five, is a soccer player and a top student. I'm told he loves moose and Maine. When he grows up, he wants to be a professional nature photographer. Virginia, also known as Tutu, is a 16-year-old freshman at Roosevelt High School in Seattle. She loves and competes in gymnastics and skiing. In fact, she is on the USA Special Olympic Women's Alpine Racing Team. And she will represent the USA in Austria only 5 days from today. She has been competing in the Winter Games all weekend, this weekend, and she and her family only arrived back to town about 2 hours ago. So thank you guys so much for being here. When not on the slopes or in the gym, Virginia enjoys writing fan fiction and is currently working on writing a musical based on the AT called Tutu. You'll see why. Katie, also known as LOL, is 19 years old and a sophomore in college. In addition to hiking 7 months on the AT with her family, Katie has already hiked the 192-mile coast-to-coast trail in England, spent 4 months in southern Africa, and last fall she completed a solo trip on the 500-mile Camino de Santiago in Spain. Katie is an avid reader, a talented writer, and dabbles in storytelling and poetry slams. She is heading to Italy to attend university this fall. Amy, aptly named Houdini, for all the magic she must have done to make her family's 7-month hike on the AT possible, and everything else, credits her love of the wilderness to canoe trips with her Girl Scout troop and long summer days in the Michigan woods. In her professional life, she is a scientist, environmentalist, and a teacher, which prepared her well to homeschool. Is it still called homeschool when you're not at home, though? She trail schooled her children, who she also refers to as her wilder children, during the 7 months they were on the AT. Amy says the goal of hiking was simply to have a fun and meaningful season together hiking north. So with that, I invite to the stage the family known on the AT as Crowd Control.
Are there other mics? Okay. Does this work? I'm going to hand it to you, and we're going to hand one to Virginia. So thank you, Angel. Yes, I'm Houdini, and this is Crowd Control. We're here tonight to tell stories, so it's not really a how-to or, I'm not going to talk a lot about how we prepared or how we dealt with insects or the bathroom or any of those fun things that people might wonder about. I've asked the kids to all pick a highlight from the trip and a low point from the trip, and then one special thing that they really want you as an audience to know about being on the trail for this long amount of time. So we were gone for 216 days. We were on trail for 156 days. And now I'd like to introduce Tutu. Wait, you can stay up there if you want to.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. Go. Slide story.
I know. The Appalachian Trail taught me many things. Tutu. I love being me. I'm strong, I'm smart, and I'm beautiful. I could do anything with time and hard work. On the AT alone, I can always count on M&M's, ramen, and tea.
All right, does this work? Oh, yeah.
So, there I was, at the shelter in Vermont. Katie is drawing rainbows by the fire. I was playing a moose game with Tutu and E.T. He's a thru hiker. When Mom came over and said, Katie can't breathe, we might have to hike out. Really, I said, having no interest in leaving. I didn't care at this point about Katie. I'm only 7. She got through the night okay, I guess. But in the morning, we hiked the half-mile to the road to get a ride to the doctor. Mom and Katie tried calling for a ride, but their phones both died. There weren't any cars on the road. We stopped one, but they said no. They were driving the opposite direction. By the time the next person came by, a guy in a truck, Katie was gasping for air. He wouldn't drive us anywhere, but he would let Mom charge her phone. She called 911. That's never happened before. Katie sounded horrible, and I think she was crying. She was scared, and then so was I. The guy in the truck waited for the ambulance, but then took off. Once Katie could breathe in the ambulance, they told us no kids. So we're like, what? Mom argued, am I supposed to leave these two here? So they said, fine, then leave your packs. No ways, Mom says. You're taking us 60 miles off trail. We need our gear. So they finally find room for our gear. I'm not so scared anymore until the ambulance starts to smoke. And they pull over. Our ambulance broke down. It broke down. So there we are on the side of the freeway. Katie connected to tubes. Another ambulance came, and they said, no kids. Not that again. Then they say no packs. Ugh, after Mom argues again, we are on our way. We finally get to the hospital, and the doctor isn't much help. What's wrong with Katie? She's allergic to Vermont. And Katie didn't die.
I did not die. And despite not being able to breathe, that actually was not my worst moment on the Appalachian Trail. My worst moment came a few weeks after that when we were hiking in Maine. We were only 2 weeks from the end. And we had just come over this mountain called Saddleback, which had been a gorgeous hike. We had beautiful weather, beautiful views from the top. Our trail family was there. It was generally just a really good experience until we started hiking down. And me, being a moody teenager who had hiked a lot of mountains so far, I, at some point on this little peak called the Horn, snapped. And we were only supposed to be 0.7 miles from the campsite we were staying in that night. So I was like, okay, 0.7 miles, I can do that. Like, just get it through. That's easy peasy. We've done this in less than an hour. Let's do it. Except that is the longest 0.7 miles of my entire life. It could not have gone more slowly. We had to climb down these giant rock scrambles. The trail was not friendly. We could hear like thunder in the distance. It was slowly getting darker. And I was as done as I have ever been. I was done with my family. I was done with hiking. I was done with the whole thing. And yet we just kept hiking and hiking and hiking. And, you know, I didn't think that I could get more pissed off, and yet somehow that still happened anyways. At one point I got convinced that we must have gone past the campsite. We've been hiking for so long, we must have passed it, like let's just go to the shelter. Except we hadn't passed it, it was just we were incredibly slow. So finally we got into this campsite. It had started raining. I set up my hammock and I crawl in and I'm just like, okay, like everything will be okay in the morning. Maybe it won't be raining. Maybe everything will be fine. Everything was not fine. I woke up in a worse mood than I had gone to bed in the night before. It was pouring rain, and that's like the worst thing ever if you've been camping, you know, having to wake up and pack up your stuff in the rain. And meanwhile, like my stuff had mainly been dry because I was underneath my hammock tarp, but the tent had turned into a little lake. And there was like rivers running in between their sleeping pads, and their shoes were wet, and their sleeping bags were wet. Pretty much everything was wet, and it was not fun. But I still had to help them pack up anyways, and I pretty much getting to the next shelter, I pretty much just kept my head down. We had given up avoiding puddles. You know, you just walk through them when your shoes are already soaked and your socks are like sponges. You just like, or whatever, just keep going. And we were coming up to the shelter, and I started to get a little bit of my feeling back. I started to get a little bit like, okay, like we're going to get to the shelter, everything's going to be good. Started to feel maybe a little bit of excitement or happiness. And I rounded sort of a bend in the trail. I could see the shelter. I was like, great. And I slipped, and both of my shoes went ankle deep in the mud, and I slammed my knee on a really big rock, and I was back to square one. I hated everything. I hated everything. And so I did what any 15-year-old teenager would do after hiking in the rain for a few hours. I set up my hammock, I took off my shoes, and I climbed in, and I zipped up my hammock, and I didn't come out. It's like the equivalent of locking yourself in the bedroom. Like, just like, no, just don't talk to me. And I only came out when there was food or to like occasionally say hi to someone we had hiked with before. I came out for a game of cards, which was fun, but ended up going back to bed in the same horrible mood that I was in. But anyways, that 48 hours remains the worst 48 hours of my entire life. And eventually we got out of there, and after a hot shower in town and drying out my boots, you know, everything was better. But yes, that remains the worst 48 hours of my entire life.
So I have a few annotations to Katie's story. We had just gotten off the horn, that's true, and Katie was livid. We had only recently been back on trail, so Katie couldn't breathe, right? We're in Vermont. We were off trail for an entire month. We went to Maine. A friend of ours had a cabin there that she offered to us, and we had to wait for doctors, for pediatric pulmonologists, and we had to figure out why Katie couldn't breathe, because you actually shouldn't be hiking off trail or on trail for 30, 60 miles without being able to get medical care. So we just recently got back on it. And that horrible time coming off the horn, we got to the campsite. There weren't any campsites, which is why we really ended up in that puddle. If you've been in parts of Maine, there's nowhere to camp unless somebody has cleared a place. So Katie's, happy, right? And so I asked her, I said, are you going to be okay? What's going on? And she said, I have climbed, expletive, mountains, and I don't have to climb anymore. So I said, okay, well, we just got you back on trail. Like, are you really done? Are you getting off? Like, what do you want to do? And she said, and this is my favorite line from the whole entire trail, I'm not finished, but I am ready to be done. So now I'm going to pass it back to Virginia. Oh, I'm going to pass this to Virginia. I'm going to interrupt for a second, Virginia. Virginia's going to tell the story of this shelter that we ended up at with Katie locked in her hammock.
It rained and rained, and we were wet. But the puddle with shelter was the best. Dorothy sang us songs and played on a ukulele. That was fun! I got too busy going in the wind, cutting my sleeping bag for hours. Dorothy made drawings on it all through high course. We were there too. We played cards. Sideshow, Dump Truck, Bella, Sister Dog, Tricks, Salsa, Arrow, Big Yankee.
These are all trail names.
Studio, Wet Bag, First Up, Just. And then there was no us. He'd go to a shelter in the best shape. He'd been wet for 24 hours. We gave him a dry sleeping bag so he could stop shivering. He was really nice and funny. He got better. We had fun at the puddle with shelter. We was a crazy rain. We told stories. We sing songs, best day ever, and we didn't go anywhere.
Okay, so I'm going to start a little story that also that starts at that shelter, but the first little bit is tangentially related. So when you're in Maine, there are all these river crossings, and some of them are shallow and slippery, and some of them are deep and wide, and one even has a canoe that has to take you across. But some of them are pretty scary, and others are a piece of cake, but they all need to really be taken seriously. So after our time on Poplar Ridge, we had a river crossing. And keep in mind that it had been raining for 36, 48 hours. We were not at all looking forward to the conditions, and although we were in the company of Trail Family, we decided to make some plans with two hikers, Twix and Salsa. They were hiking with a dog who belonged to a different hiker who had gotten off trail to go to a wedding. And so we made plans because we were all a day or two behind at this point, and when we get a day or two behind, it causes kind of big problems for our size of a group. But we were also a little creeped out. So we had heard on the trail that there had been a missing hiker. And she went off trail. The last time she was seen was in this shelter. And she had gone off trail somewhere in the next few miles that we were going to be crossing between this shelter, the river, and then a logging road that was a little beyond that. So her name was Inchworm, and she was about 65. And her husband was supposed to meet her at the next road crossing that was maybe 20 miles away. So as thru hikers, you're concerned about your fellow thru hikers. And we, as a group, just sort of thought about how somebody could get off of the trail, because it seemed that the trail was just so clear to follow. And she just didn't show at her next waypoint. And that kind of thing makes you think that maybe you'll be able to find a clue, you'll maybe be able to find something, but there was no trace of this hiker. So we decided with Twix and Salsa and Bella that we would need to hike out and resupply, all the while having the thoughts of Inchworm in our heads. We seemed to take forever getting out of the shelter. It wasn't pouring anymore, and we made the few miles to the river, all the while looking and trying to figure out what might have happened to this other hiker. The approach to the river was moderately steep, and we came down to this rocky edge, and there were Twix and Salsa and Bella hanging out at the river. But also there were all of our trail family that we had seen in the last 24 hours. They had all waited for us because they were concerned about the depth of the water and us being able to cross safely. So, pro tip, carried Virginia across, and just carried Duncan across. And other hikers that were there helped move our gear across. It was thigh deep on a fairly tall man, and it was really slippery. Katie crossed with Twix, and I crossed with Salsa. And there was much clapping and hugging and smiling when we got across. The fact that they waited, it's not a usual trait in a thru hiker. Like, the whole point in the thru hike is to just keep moving. And several months later, we found out more information, or several months ago, we found out more information about Inchworm. She had, in fact, gone off trail very close to the river crossing. And we were less than a half a mile from where she was found. But trail family and thru hikers, we take care of one another, and we take each other seriously. And we feel for any hiker that's in trouble at all. And that moment of our trail family being there from us was just such a huge, huge moment, because they really were family. And we will never forget any of those people who were there. Was that just it on the screen? Yeah, that is pro tip and Just right there. Just has Duncan's tiny little pack on his back. And interim, rest in peace. Who's next? I've lost track of who's next. Duncan is next.
So do I do? Okay. Yeah. Bearded men and a small boy, me. We are family. Hikers, through hikers, are all different, but we all the same. Trail family. Hikers hike. We're from all over the world, all different stories of where we've come from and what we do. Trail family taught me you can't tell who someone is by the way they look or how they smell.
Hi, I'm Cedric, or Roadkill. What I want to tell you is good is bad, bad is good. Good things happen. Good things happen. Sometimes it just takes 5 minutes and a smile. I went home. That was great. And sometimes 200 miles is all you need. My stories are about Georgia. There's a mountain called Trey Mountain. The parts of Trey Mountain that weren't horrible were amazing. We had a crazy day. First, chaos. A thru hiker Virginia named. That's another story. Chaos welcomed us as a family. Then Erin. She'll be called Candy Pants later on when someone gives her that trail name. Erin smiles and said, "Howdy," in her Jeep's southern accent. And I climb up to meet her. I was wet, cold, and hungry, but I was with a new friend. And a few people, well, two, tried to tell us to move on. But Candy Pants and Chaos made room for us, so we could change into our warm, dry clothes. Then Candy Pants hung out with us outside while we slurped down ramen and drank tea. We laughed. Chaos got the people in the shelter to make room. And we snuggled together. Mom read to us. Trey Mountain shelter was good, except Trey Mountain was not. So the bad stuff, well, that was pretty much my fault. Yeah, I know. I was being a brat that day. I didn't want to hike. Ultimately did not. There was a storm coming, but I did not agree that was going to happen. Even I threw Tutu's backpack down the mountain. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even need to go get it. High five needed to go get it. When I got higher up, it rained really hard. On the very top of the mountain, Katie took Duncan and Virginia to safety across. I stood in the hail. Yes, there was hail. And there was lightning, and I was mad. I was scared, and this mountain made me mad. This was bad. Even though Mom got me to safety to the shelter, I was going to remember forever that Trey Mountain was the worst part of the trail. Good is bad, bad is good. Good things happen. Sometimes it just takes 5 minutes and a smile. I went home. That was great. Sometimes 200 miles is all you need.
Have you ever had a bug bite? Raise your hand if you have had 10 bug bites.
Oh, sorry, she's seeing through it.
At one time. Count up if you had 20, 30, 50, 35, 100, 200, 300, over 300. I have. I got them in New York and Connecticut. They were itchy. Bug spray didn't work, and the itch stuff didn't work. We tried everything. The bug bites were the worst. I want to talk about the ticks.
Yeah, she's not. We have some really good tick stories that aren't going to make it up here tonight. And Katie had more than 600 bug bites. Yes, we feel bad for Katie.
Bromley was awesome. It's a mountain in Vermont. We hiked up it and found a chairlift and a ski patrol cabin. We dropped our packs and explored. Some guys showed up, Sobos. We called them the Pineapple Group, regular bearded thru hikers. They had crazy names, Flip, Smooth, and Flashback. We decided to stay and stargaze. They were cool. I went to the cabin to get our sleeping bags, and Flip said, "Don't sleep on the floors. There are mice." So we decided if we didn't sleep outside, we would sleep on the tables. They had this cool ball they asked hikers to sign. So Katie made this cool crowd control sign, and we all signed our names. We went out and looked at the stars. The sky was so clear. There were shooting stars, and Mom had her constellation book. Star constellation book. It was awesome. The Pineapple Group started a fire. I'm pretty sure it's illegal, but it was fun and warm. The guys were fun. And one of my favorite pictures is of Big Yankee and me on the chairlift. I loved Bromley.
So crazy, insane, irresponsible, I've been called it all. And for a brief period before I had my trail name, I called myself Crazy Don't Quit. My main message is just because someone else thinks your idea of adventure is crazy doesn't mean it's true. And my goal was to be safe, to have fun, and to be bold. So my story is about Vermont. Vermont rocked our world. We loved Vermont, even though we've already told some questionable stories about it. We laughed a lot in southern Vermont, but we had a bit of a money problem at one point. It was kind of a mix-up, but we ended up having to resupply with $12.50. So, and it needed to get us 4 days. Let's just say we scraped the barrel on that section. By the time we hit town, we had eaten all of our food, including everything we had in our emergency kits and the almond butter that the boys carried in case something crazy happened, and this thing of mashed potatoes that we really believed that we were never, ever going to eat. So we used all of our fuel and carried out a quarter of a cup of uncooked rice. And soaking rice in cold water does not make it edible in any way, shape, or form. So we were fairly close to the road after an overnight in this adorable, like, real live cabin with a door and windows and everything. When we got to the road leading to Manchester, we got a hitch before we could drop our packs, and the guy rearranged his entire car so that us and our gear and his dog could fit in it. He dropped us off at this bagel place where we had the absolutely best bagel we have ever had in our whole entire lives. And in a food-deprived whim, we bought a dozen bagels. When you're a thru hiker, you don't buy a dozen bagels. They're perishable, and they're heavy, and they take up a lot of room. But we headed to resupply with them anyway. And I'd called a hostel the night before, so we knew we were staying in the hostel. And we prepared to spend the night. As we perfected this, we called torture. So we played this game called torture, and at night, the whole plan of it was to, let's see, I lost my place, was to decide on what is the least accessible, most delicious thing you can think of to eat. And so we would play this on a regular basis. And we had perfected a roadside gas station mini mart resupply, and this was a real grocery store. So Katie and I filled up an entire cart with groceries and headed to this shelter where Katie decided to make this amazing stuffed eggplant with a homemade sauce. But we had bought so much food, it was actually like shameless. But it was all worth it because Katie made this amazing meal. We fed 15 hikers. We had salad and dessert, and we had amazing food and amazing company. We did laundry, repacked, and we decided that we would never, ever run out of food again, and especially Vermont cheese. So we headed out. LOL carried in her arms 5 pounds of cheese that we could not fit into our packs. And 5 pounds of cheese is enough, and she carried it like a baby. And it became our cheese baby. And we still call it the cheese baby and laugh about it, and we have nothing but fondness for our day at the Green Mountain Hostel. All right, so kids are capable. Play to their strengths, develop their confidence, shore up their challenging areas. My goal was to foster a deep love and appreciation for the wilderness and for one another through direct experience. And some experience just can't be forgotten.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I learned on the trail overall, and of course I learned a lot of things, but for me the biggest thing was persistence. You know, I had a lot of ups and downs, and you know, everyone will have a lot of ups and downs in their life, but just having the mentality or, you know, that key of persistence of saying, you know, you can keep going. You can just make it a little bit farther if you keep your eye on, you know, what you're doing and why you're doing it. You can pretty much achieve anything. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. And even though, you know, I did learn a lot of things, one of the most meaningful things that happened to me was meeting a friend of mine. And her name was Chipmunk. She was the only other 15-year-old girl hiking the AT at the time, and she now holds the record for the youngest thru hikers soloing the AT. And we met in Maine, and it kind of happened by chance because we had like heard of each other. Like we both knew that there was some other girl hiking the AT, but we kept sort of leapfrogging and not meeting up. Until we were doing a southbound hike in the 100-mile wilderness, and we crossed paths, quite literally. And it turned out that we bonded over teenage girl things like Harry Potter and One Direction, and hit it off right off the bat. We ended up meeting her family, Mama Chip and Papa Chip and Chocolate Chip, their French bulldog, and they rode around in a trailer called the Chipmobile. And Mama Chip and Papa Chip and Chocolate Chip would ride around in the Chipmobile and meet Chipmunk at different road crossings while she hiked in between. And her name's Neva, and 4 years later, she is now one of my best friends. And I could not be more grateful for just having her in my life now, and that absolutely wouldn't have happened had I not gone on this adventure. So.
Okay, so it's all attitude. It's all attitude. You make a choice, you choose a path, and for me, it was the Appalachian Trail. I knew that the AT and our group and the wilderness and the weather would throw us all sorts of curveballs, but we were prepared to roll with it. And I don't know what I'm talking about now. Well, we just knew that we would work through anything. We had practiced so much ahead of time before we went. And that if we stuck with it, we knew that we would get to Katahdin and we'd get to the top. A good attitude is why we were able to do what we did. And going back to the very first slide, we didn't know who we were until we saw what we could do. So we went out and we did it. The end. Oh, I did have one more sentence. We never got sick of M&M's, ramen, or tea.
We're getting ready to go to a 15-minute intermission, but please wait another minute because I have a special video to share with you. During intermission, you can grab pizza in the lobby, $3 for a slice, $5 for 2 slices, and get your drinks replenished. All proceeds are going to Wide Open Vistas. Sorry about that. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. But proceeds from the drinks are going to Wide Open Vistas, who is an organization in Nepal that focuses on the educational and health needs of disadvantaged children. 2 ways they do this is through direct financial sponsorship to keep children in school, and they have created a wildly popular girls running club. In case you needed a reason to refill your glasses, there's one. Be sure to return to the auditorium and find your seat in 15 minutes when we will start raffling items. So this is, if you want to hear more about the Martin Wade family, aka Crowd Control, you can read their blogs. You can also hear Amy talk about their family hike on the 192-mile coast-to-coast trail on the Boldly Went podcast. If you haven't heard of Boldly Went events yet, these are community-derived outdoor adventure storytelling events where members of the outdoor community come, sign up, and are selected at random to share their outdoor adventure stories. We then take the best stories from the evening and make a podcast so that more people can hear those inspiring adventure stories. Amy was one of those who was randomly selected to share their story at the Seattle event in January. So you can download the Boldly Went podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, or Podcast Addict. Amy's story about her family's experience on the Coast to Coast Trail is the second podcast entitled Escapades in Pakistan, England, and Iceland. Is Joel here? No. Oh, okay. So check it out, subscribe, and leave a comment if you like it. Okay, so now to wrap up this half of the program with one last piece of information about the Martin Wade family. They are currently preparing for a trip to Austria to support Virginia, who will be downhill skiing for Team USA at the Special Olympics in just a couple days. Yeah. Hard to imagine you're going to be in Austria in just a couple days. Microsoft has given us permission to share this short clip featuring Virginia and her family. If you would like to support Virginia and her family, then check out Virginia's GoFundMe and follow along on the Facebook page called Virginia Heads to Austria World Special Olympic Winter Games March 2017. And you can link to these through the Grit and Grace website. So we're going to go ahead and play the video, I think.
Ski on a downhill. I'm excited to go to Austria.
I heard about this girl named Virginia who is on the U.S. Special Olympics skiing team. I know that she's incredibly passionate about musicals and art. Virginia, it's so good to meet you. So I heard today we're going to be skiing and tomorrow we're going to be doing a little performing. Does that sound cool?
Yeah.
Virginia, I'm on top of the world! How do you stop?
Pizza.
Pizza?
Yeah.
And then what about when you're going fast? What's that called?
Fast rides.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Whoa. Let's see if I can. Whoa! Who's your favorite skier?
Katie, my sister.
Virginia's grown into being a great skier. She's now going to Austria to compete in the World Special Olympic Games, and it's really exciting for all of us.
Virginia is so much more than just an athlete.
My name is Virginia. This is my story of my time on the Appalachian Trail.
She had months of walking in the mountains. We started singing this song that she got so excited. She was like, we could write a musical.
My name is Tutu, and I want you. So precious, yes, I do.
Very nice, I love it. My name is Tutu, she's my #1 boo. I can't wait to get into your show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you for the skiing lesson.
You're welcome.
Virginia.
Hi.
It's day 2 of my adventure with Virginia. I can't wait to really get into her script and see if I can be helpful in any way. I hope so. How do you see the music being spread out throughout the play? We really broke down the script right there.
Yeah.
We're able to look at the typical hero's journey. Do you want to practice that scene?
Yeah.
What is that?
A lion.
Roar! A little stage combat, I like it. I feel like we've gotten her play to somewhere that's really solid. You've worked so hard on making your musical something great, so I thought maybe I could have a buddy of mine in London bring it to life.
Hello, Virginia, how are you?
Good.
Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
Hiking on my trail, name is Tutu, and I want you to pretend to be princesses, yes I do.
On our own, we might, only get to a certain point.
Yeah, just go fast.
Your name was Tutu?
Yeah.
I'm Tutu, the greatest hiker in the world. But when we joined forces, we made something pretty special.
I'm greatest Tutu in the whole world. Woo!
I think I broke my butt.
Yeah. I really love it.
Okay, so go ahead and head out to intermission and come back here at about 10 after 6 so that we can get started with our next amazing family. We're going to get started with some raffling. And we have some really cool stuff. I'm so excited to tell you guys about some of our cool local businesses. So make sure you have your raffle tickets handy. All right, Raina and Thea, come on up. All right, here, come right down here. So first up is a raffle by Monster & Sea. And Monster & Sea has given us a lot of stuff, and I'm excited to be able to tell you a little bit more about them. But first, if you have ticket 9860302, can you just say something? Yeah, signal? Okay, good. So Monster & Sea, also if you have ticket 9860303, where are you? Sweet, George. 9860317. Monster & Sea was inspired by a morning on the water by a passionate paddler when there wasn't much left, mentally drained from all that cancer brought into the founder Troy's family. The driving force behind Monster & Sea is go because you are healthy, go because you are able, go because you can. Everything they create, 24-hour paddling events, clothes, hats, beautiful websites, and moving blogs, is dedicated to families arm wrestling with cancer, and 10% of every sale goes to help. So we're really happy to be able to feature them tonight, and we look forward to more partnerships with them. Next up is Fleet Feet. We also, by the way, have more stuff for Monster & Sea because they gave us so much, but we're going to save it for the end. Fleet Feet. I think I called these 3. Okay. Did I call 317? Okay. How about 303? Oh, you're collecting them. Got it. 302. No? Who has 3? Okay, yes. Fail. Raffle fail. I better do one at a time. 9860354. So Fleet Feet is that a Fleet Feet too? Yeah, there's 2. Perfect. Okay, Fleet Feet's been a huge supporter of everything we do, and we love them. Okay, also from Fleet Feet. 0369. 369? There they are. And next is from Running Evolution. Running Evolution is a really fun local running coaching business. Beth is in the audience. Her website's really great, and I do want you to check it out. Running Evolution is a beer-drinking, donut-eating, high-five-giving, all-around supportive network for new and seasoned runners. 60350. 0350. 350. So I did want to mention that WTA is supporting us. They've given 2 family memberships to the family speaker baskets, which you guys don't even know you're getting yet. And then next up, we have some GSI gear. So GSI uses customer feedback to create new and exciting camping items from products which others believed could not be improved or were not worth the effort. $369. Oh, I did? Does someone else want to run the raffle? $361. And another bottle. This goes to $351. $351. And also GSI sent us this really, really cool camp, like cooking pot and bowls and cups, and the packaging even is a sink. So if you have 344, you are lucky. Who has 344? Lucky winner. Where's the Ridgecrest? Ridgecrest? That's okay. We'll come back to that one. Yeah, here's from Ridgecrest Public House. To be a winner for this, you have to be over 21, because it's a place with delicious beer and for people to gather and enjoy each other's company in the Ridgecrest neighborhood and shoreline. It's really cool for outdoor adventure types. $329. I need to see you for this one. Oh. Oh, yeah, you have been there. And last up on this round is Fit First Optimum Nutrition and Performance. Jess Mullen is a talented ultra runner and certified running coach who believes you can feel better, look better, and perform better even as you age. I see someone who wants this. $293? Oh, $293. Who's the lucky winner? There you go. All right, more raffle after we hear from the Fagans. It's time to start the second portion of the event. I first became aware of Chris and Marty through the ultra running world. Chris and Marty are old timers in the Washington running world, having been in the scene here since the late 90s at least. When I first met Chris, it was on an early morning jaunt at Mount Gsi, where we had gone out to find a few other crazies running around in the woods, but not really knowing where they were. I don't remember, but I don't think we found them. What I do remember more than anything that day is Chris. I was impressed with Chris's relative comfort with doing hard things. This run up to the top of Gsi at 5 a.m, big whoop. Chris talked about how it was going into 100 season and how that had just snuck up on her. For anyone who doesn't observe or rather know about what 100 season is, I was able to determine in the context of the conversation that it is that season when you normally train to run 100 miles through the mountains. I think this was before I had ever run 100 miles or considered it. So for me, I was trying to maintain my composure and be cool, like, yeah, this run, big whoop, between gasps. For Chris, talking about 100 season was as routine as talking about the new year or your birthday. It was something that was so ingrained to who she was as a person that running 100 miles could actually just sneak up on her. I love how she's just looking at me like, oh, what are you talking about? I did not have the context at the time to know that she and Marty maintained a seriously adventurous lifestyle. Between them having completed more than 40 races longer than 50 miles, 40 races? And summiting some of the highest peaks in North and South America, including Denali in Alaska, Aconcagua in Argentina, Rainier Baker, and others. Marty, like Chris, shows no signs of slowing down. Last year, having entered the ranks of those who have run the 94 miles around Mount Rainier in one day and running the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. I pulled this picture of Marty from Facebook, captioned with, "Sometimes you have to squeeze training into your day." On Friday, Marty got up at 2:30 a.m., ran 31 miles around Green Lake, then went to work. They undertook the South Pole expedition in 2013-14, which made them the first American married couple to complete a full expedition from the coast to the South Pole, unsupported and unassisted, meaning they hauled all their stuff in 220-pound sleds. They are in the Guinness Book of World Records as the fastest couple to the South Pole, unsupported, unassisted. The South Pole expedition was interesting to me for reasons other than just their physical accomplishment. I thought they were particularly clever in the way they turned this into a family adventure. Keenan, then 12, did not go to the South Pole, but Chris and Marty got creative about how to involve him in their adventure, which they will tell us a bit about tonight. At 15 years old now, Keenan, with his parents, has grown up in a life full of adventures. From a young age, they have taken multi-day kayaking trips. At 10, he biked from the base of Kilimanjaro to the coast of Tanzania. Then he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. At 11, he climbed Mount Fuji in Japan. At 13, he rafted for 2 weeks down the Grand Canyon. And last year, he upped his hiking game, spending time on trail at St. Helens, Rainier, then hiking to Everest Base Camp, which tops out at 17,500 feet. Their adventure CV is much more lengthy, but I want to give the audience the opportunity to hear directly from this inspiring family. So Chris, Marty, Keenan, come on up.
Obviously, we didn't practice up on stage here much.
Hello. Yeah.
We have multiple items. I'm going to do this a lot because I really want to see everybody. So.
Yeah, this is getting... Hi, I'm Chris Fagan, and thank you so much for that great introduction. You know, I was looking at her because I don't have a great as a memory of you as all those details from the minute we met. And it's true, we have been ultra running for many, many years. And I'm going to see if I can get this going.
Oh, sorry. So it's not showing here.
Oh.
For whatever reason.
Ah.
That's why I keep.
Okay. Back it up. Back it up. There we go. Okay. All right. So Marty and I met 19 years ago on Denali in Alaska, and we were not on the same team, but somehow we met, and you know, shortly after that, he moved to Seattle, and that's the beginning of the life of adventure outside with Marty. And when we decided to have a family, we wanted to continue doing that outside adventure theme as we brought him into the world. And so, as you heard, ultra running has really been a foundation for us for that feeling of being outdoors. And we've been doing that for over a decade, and Keenan has been there from the first day he was born, at races, playing in the dirt, etc. So we want to share a couple of our favorite stories of as the foundation for our life outdoors together, and then lead you into some other adventures over the last decade. So one of my favorite memories is when I ran Western States 100. Keenan was 4.5 years old. And in order to do that, Marty was my crew. He followed me around to these aid stations. And we had my niece with us as well, Lindsay, who I might be here tonight. And so she was with Keenan when it was nighttime. They camped at the end of the race, which is at high school. They were camping out there. So the memory I have is the greatest feeling is it was one of the hottest Western states on record. It was over 105 in the valley that during the day, and I was really suffering. And so by the time I got to the finish line, Keenan came running out the last 100 yards from the field and ran into the finish line with me, holding my hand. And that is just etched in my memory as one of the greatest moments to share with my son and have him see that I, survived this horrible wonderfully horrible event. So now I'm going to have Keenan share one of his memories at these races.
So one of my best memories of my parents running is at the Arkansas Traveler 100. I was staying with my grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle. And at the races, they have all the aid stations with all the food. So while they were gone, I made sure to taste test all of the food at all of the aid stations. And I just got to really just do whatever I wanted and hang around all the aid stations and have a lot of fun. So at all their races, that's always my best time, is seeing them come in and playing around in the dirt and all of that. Yeah.
And as Keenan always said, there's lots of M&Ms at those aid stations, so that's what he was enjoying most. Taking Keenan to all of our ultra races was a big thing for us because the races were so much about us doing those things. We wanted him to be there with us. And one of my favorite memories was when we were in Chamonix, France, getting ready to do the Tour de Mont Blanc. Chamonix had an incredible water slide, and Keenan and I were just pumped to get down there. And we ran to the water slide, and we were just getting in line for it, and the lifeguard came up to us and in French was pointing at our shorts, and we had no idea what he was talking about. But then he pointed at a cartoon character on the wall who was in shorts kind of like us, baggy shorts with an X across it. And we still did not really understand. We got dressed again, went to the front desk, found somebody who spoke French, and we figured out what was going on. And I hope you can see this. I didn't get to put the picture up. We had to rent French shorts, which was those. That is actually us. That's how much we wanted to do the water slide.
All right, so you have to go the other way. I don't know what's going on with that. Oh, keep going. We're going to get back to. So anyway, keep going. You want me to just nod and have you click when it's time? It keeps. There we go. There we go. All right. So while we were out doing running for over a decade, and Keenan was with us, along the way he started doing his own races. So he did, like the 1K race, and then all of a sudden he was doing the 1.5 mile, and then he was doing the 5 mile, and then some trail runs with us. And, just this past October, he and Marty ran the Fall City Half Marathon together. So at 15, we were pretty proud of where he's come along. And he's also on the cross-country team, which is a lot of fun. So it's great to see him come along the way with our love of running, and see him challenge himself. All right.
So one of the first adventures we decided to go on was when Keenan was 7 years old. We felt it was time to go ahead, and that felt like this appropriate age to get him out there on an international trip and challenge him a little bit. And we decided that we were going to bike around Kilimanjaro. And we brought that tag-along bike with us there, and that was a key piece of equipment that had to get to Kilimanjaro. And at one point when we were in, I believe, Nairobi, and stuff was getting transferred to the plane, I was so focused on this getting there. I could see it in a box out on the tarmac. I could see our plane was loaded with luggage already, and that bike was not getting on the plane. And since this was Nairobi, I actually found somebody, and we walked out onto the tarmac together, and him and I carried it and put it on the plane, and I paid him $20, which probably was an exorbitant amount of money. But this trip allowed us to really get Keenan close to the culture. We biked all the way around Kilimanjaro. It took us about 5 days, just sort of took our time. We had guides with us, though. And we were able to bump into people just like that all the way around. Hang on just a second there. I'm just going to change the slide. Yep. So what was great, every few miles you'd run into a town like this, and Keenan was the absolute focus of attention. He was immediately surrounded every single time we came into a village. Kids just staring at him. At first he was a little nervous, and you could see he was scared of it, but it was really exciting. With Chris, the Tanzanian women loved seeing her out there. They would yell at her, "Jambo," which means hello, and then they would yell, "Pole," which means, "I'm sorry for your misfortune." So, because they felt she was working too hard. And then they would say, "Pole, pole, slow down, you're working too hard." And but we soon discovered in Tanzania, everything is pole, pole. There is no sense of time also in Tanzania. Things take longer than you would think. One of our greatest memories there, though, was, so this was in 2008, just after the election of Obama. And folks coming up to us and asking us if we were American, and then just yelling Obama at us. There was a few kids running around with T-shirts on that said "Next President of the United States." So it was we felt a lot of pride in our country and felt like ambassadors.
So in this slide right here, it shows that every single town we'd come into, we'd take a little break, and we would always hope that they had orange Fanta in the town. That was we got it in every single town. It was very cheap there, and that was just what you'd pray for in every single town. I'm standing with some Messiah here, and they would always greet us. And in this photo here, they're not smiling at all. In real life, they smile all the time. They're very happy. When you take a photo, it's the opposite of us. No smile at all.
So by the end of that trip, it was just felt really great for us to get immersed in that culture and be able to hang out with the Tanzanian people. Right after our bike, we took another short adventure to a place called Lake Ayazi, and there are the Hadzabe people. And they're an isolated tribe of about 1,000 people that still use traditional hunter-gatherer techniques. And we got there early in the morning with them.
So when we arrived, they were just rising from sleeping on their grass mats on the dirt. So they taught us their way of building a fire using friction. They took us on a hunt. They showed us their skills with their bow and arrows, and they were able to shoot a few birds with them. They also showed us how they gathered and the different berries that they could eat there. And some of them were even drinking from the streams that weren't moving at all, that were just mud. And they're able to do that because their immune systems are able to handle that. But this bow and arrow, it was a really cool thing to be able to get from them. It's something that always reminds me. I have it hanging up on my wall, and I always look at it and think of the cool trip that we had there.
So we also spent a day at St. Margaret's Academy. So for many years prior to this trip, we had been sponsoring a young boy there, Calvin. And we went to their school, and they had an event there. All the kids were there, came, and we brought a bunch of gift bags for them. And we got to spend the day having lunch with them and hanging out with them. And after that, I believe it was the next day, we also took Calvin and his two sisters on a safari with us for the day and went canoeing with them. So we got to spend a lot of time with Calvin, and it was great to meet up with him.
So we had been sending letters back and forth with Calvin for a while before, and it was really nice to finally be able to meet this kid that we had heard so much about but never really got to see. I also got to play soccer and a lot of other games with all the kids there, and it was really touching that all the kids with their gift bags, they were getting so little, but they were so happy with the small amount that they got from us. They were satisfied with that.
So for this first trip to Tanzania just made a really big impact on us. You could tell it broadened Keenan's view of the world, brought him in contact with Calvin, and just opened up. This was really the opening up for us to the future adventures for us. It was really impactful.
There's so many places you can go in the in the world that after we had that door open, we thought, where should we go next? And we fell so much in love with Tanzania that we decided to go back to Tanzania. And 3 years later, Keenan was just turned 10 years old. And so we decided to go back. And this time we decided, we kind of saw what he was made of at age 7. And we thought, we can kind of push the boundaries a little bit this time. And physically, so we decided, well, let's up the ante a little bit on this biking. So as you heard about, we decided to bike from the foothills of Kilimanjaro, and we were going to make it to the coast. And then take a little one-day break and then climb Kilimanjaro. So that was our goal. So this time, instead of bringing a bike on the plane, as you heard from Marty, we decided we would send a tandem mountain bike a few months in advance, so it'd be waiting there for months and months in advance so that it would be waiting for us. And we kept tracking that bike and tracking it. It kept not being there. Pretty soon, it decided to go rogue on its own vacation in Europe. And it was in Frankfurt, and then it made it to London. And it went, dark for a while. It actually didn't arrive in Tanzania until 2 months after we came home. So as we got there, we were sort of like, okay, we got to find a bike that fits Keenan, and we just scurried around, got this figured out, and most of all, we were worried about Keenan. We had this big, long bike. Is he going to be able to bike his own bike? And we turned to Keenan and we said, now, Keenan, you're not going to be able to do that tandem like we practiced for months on. Okay, Mom. And that was the mentality that we were hoping to instill in Keenan, and he was already demonstrating it before we even started. And so it was just fantastic to see that in him. Next slide. Okay, so just getting started on this adventure was an adventure. We arrived at the airport, and we were like, okay, it's gonna, we're told it's gonna take a couple hours to get to our starting point, and about 8 hours later, we were maybe pulling into the starting point. So the pole time in Tanzania, you have to be, if you're going to take your kids on grand adventures, you have to have that flexibility mindset to do this for sure. But the interesting thing here was there was a gas shortage in the country, and so we kept going past these gas stations, and our car was on empty, and there was no gas, and then we kept going, and we were just for sure we were going to end up in the middle of nowhere with running out of gas. But there was some miracle happening, halo over our Jeep. I don't know what was happening, but we ended up making it to a destination and finally getting some gas. But these are the kind of things you run into. And of course, halfway through, there was a mudslide because there was, a lot of rain, and then we were stuck in this road. And then people just come flocking out of nowhere, and they start helping you, So a lot of times we're a little shy or afraid of going to foreign places with our kids, or even as adults. And most of the time, you find people are really, really nice. That's been my experience all over the world. So Keenan was a trooper that first day. Also, we didn't really know how far we were going each day, and we went 35 miles the first day, and we're like, Keenan, how are you doing? Okay, he did it. All right. So, biking through those remote villages was really an amazing experience. We ended up covering 150 miles over 5 days, and we connected these roads that typically aren't biked on at all, and so we really were a foreigner to these people who would see us. And Keenan's going to tell you a little bit about experience he had.
So one of our very hard days that we had, there was this huge hill about 2 miles long, and it was about 95 degrees out that day. And we were trying to ride our bikes up it. So eventually we just decide, okay, I'm just going to push my bike because there's no point in trying to actually ride up this. And then this little boy on his 1-gear bike comes riding up beside us, just casually going up the hill. And he's just smiling at us. He's not saying anything. He's just happy to see something different in his normal day. And then other people would just come running bare feet on the sharp gravel. They just come running up beside you. And it's the kids have a tough life, so it's nice for them they're able to see something different in their usual lives. So you don't need to talk to them or anything. They don't really want to talk. They just want to see you. They just want to see something different and smile.
So after we did the bike trip, we took, like I said, we took a day off, and then boom, we were back. We were going to start climbing now. So our goal was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. It's the highest mountain in Africa, and it's at 19,340 feet. So our goal was to hike, pole, slowly acclimatize. A lot of people go there and try to really just pound that mountain out and get it done in 5 days. And we knew that would not be something smart to do with a child of 10 years old, and it's not really smart for adults either, but particularly a child with acclimatization. So we went slowly and really enjoyed the time. And also, Keenan was enjoying himself, but for sure at times it was trying, no doubt. Some of those descriptions of being on the AT, it's like, have we had enough time out here? We weren't out there nearly as many days, but, we don't know what our limits are until we've kind of reached them. And so certain days, Keenan you'd have to prod him along, but we had some really nice people, guides with us as well, and we try to distract him and keep him moving, and, a lot of rewards at the end of the day with food rewards. But what happened was, on day 7, we were at high camp, and it was kind of the typical staging of when you go to summit a big mountain, you get up at midnight. Well, when you're 10 years old, that can really be disruptive, getting up at midnight, but we got up at midnight, and you do that in order to try to summit by about sunrise. And about 30 minutes into the hike that morning, Keenan says, my stomach's killing me, I really don't feel well. And then about 2 minutes later, he's throwing up. And we're like, Marty and I looked at each other like, this is not a good beginning. And we kind of knew in that moment, but we knew he's like, oh, I'm still going. So, really we kept pushing. We were with some other people, and then suddenly it was just us with one guide. And so Keenan just kept pushing for 3 hours. He threw up 3 more times. And each time he said, no, I'm still going. Mom, I'm still going. So finally, Marty and I looked at each other at the number 3, because by now he's moving at a crawling pace. And we're trying to get him to eat stuff, and he just can't eat anything. So at about 2:40 a.m., or I don't know what time it was, something a.m., it was dark, it was really cold, and we decided, we huddled as a family, and we said, weighing the pros and cons, and we said, Keenan, I don't think this is your day. It's time for us to turn around. We need to be safe, and your health is more important. And so we huddled, and then we decided, you know what? One of us adults, Marty or I, we could go on for the family and summit for the family. Yeah, let's do that. So being the mama bear, I was like, there's no way I'm leaving my son. I'm going down with Keenan. So we sent Marty up to summit for the family. I went down with Keenan and our guide, Wilson. And I held on to Keenan tightly. He was very kind of wobbly at that time, and so I just held on to him with my dear life because I didn't, want him hurting himself. We get down to base camp, and he just sort of falls into the tent, stumbles in, and he's asleep in a second. What I didn't mention is in that moment when we were up at the turning point of we're going to turn around, Keenan says, I just don't want to disappoint you and Dad. And I don't want to disappoint my friends because they all knew about him at school. And what a valuable lesson for him to learn. First we're like, Keenan, you've surpassed our expectations by getting this far, right? But as a 10-year-old, that's this norm he has in his mind. So we get into the tent, he falls into bed, and he is sleeping, and he literally says, in his sleep, I don't want to turn around. And of course, then Mom falls apart because the guilt of what the pressure that we were feeling we might have put our son under just kind of takes over. Keenan's going to tell you his feeling about this.
It's my favorite picture.
So the person on the right there is Simon, and the person on the left is Wilson. Wilson, he was one of our guides, and he was kind of like a coach to me. He helped me focus, and he helped me even get that far. I probably wouldn't have done 3 more hours of throwing up and stuff if he hadn't been pushing me. He really made me get that far on the mountain, and he helped me so much throughout the whole trip. Simon is the owner of the whole guide company, and he became one of our good friends. He even invited me to come live with him and his family over the summer to help work with them, and I bring this up to my parents every chance I get. So over this whole trip, I learned that setting big goals and not getting there isn't a failure. It's still a great trip, and you still learn many valuable lessons through it.
I guess we haven't gotten that adventurous that we're sending him off to Tanzania by himself yet, so we'll see. Yeah, that's right. So just after the Kilimanjaro trip, Chris and I got back, and we were both feeling the pull of a major challenge. I think I had this a little more than Chris. I was feeling like I was getting old, and that I needed to do something that would be sort of the pinnacle of our adventure career. And that's when we started hatching a plan to ski self-supported, no guide and no resupply across Antarctica to the South Pole. Just a little info, Antarctica is about 1.5 times the size of the U.S. The route we did was 570 miles, starting at the coast and going to the pole. So Keenan, of course, would not be going with us on this. You actually have to be at least 16 to even do this guided. They're not even going to fly you in there. And but our goal was to make him a major part of this and incorporate him into this. And some of the ways we did that was having him help us train. So he helped us taste test food, test gear, pack stuff. There was endless amounts of this to do. You can see us there. We're pulling SUV tires. We did this up to sometimes 10 hours a day, Chris and I, pulling the tires. We'd start at Rattlesnake Lake and pull them all the way to Hyak. Yeah, what a joy. Yeah. So we'd get out in the snow. There's Keenan. We're pulling our South Pole sleds, and we got Keenan strapped on behind, helping us out. But this was the hardest decision for us. Should we do this? Could we leave Keenan behind? And it took Chris and I an entire year to decide, to answer that question. We studied, learned about the South Pole, are we qualified? And we spent a year doing that. We decided yes, and what we did was we really brought friends and family into this. What they did while we were gone is every week or so, they would rotate in and out of our house. We wanted Keenan to be in our house, not go anywhere else. Everybody rotated in and out of our house the whole time we were gone. Mostly Chris did this. She made a Keenan manual, a 40-page manual. It literally was 40 pages on everything about our house in Keenan, how to restart the router, right? Everything was in there. His entire school got completely on board with this. Big giant map. They put a giant map of Antarctica up and tracked us every day. We presented to the schools before we left. And the teachers, we sat down with the teachers, and they kept an eye on him while we were gone. So it was really great.
At first, about 3 years before they left, I was 9 years old. I wasn't too excited about it. But as time went on and they explained it more to me and I got a little older, I got very excited for the trip, and I really felt like I was involved in it.
Let's switch over. So, nope, didn't switch. No, aiming at the computer. There you go. Excuse me. So November 2013. We were dropped by a plane at our starting point, just Chris and I, on the coast of Antarctica. Our sleds were full of gear, fuel, food for 45 days. Each sled weighed about 220 pounds each. So there's only a handful of expeditions every year that do this, so you're not going to see anybody once you're dropped. That's it. You're by yourself out there. The average temperature was probably around 20 degrees below zero. This picture is a great representation of what it's like every day. So you're behind the person, you're not talking, you're not skiing side by side, having just this great conversation every day. You're head down, you're switching leads about every hour because it's a lot of work being in the front. And it's every day is, Chris had more pleasurable days than me, I think. Early on, yeah. So this is a nice shot of what it's like out there in your tent. So, you know, it's a great campsite every night, right? There's not a single Budweiser beer can anywhere at a campsite. So in the tent each night, we turn on our satellite phone. We call in our latitude and longitude every night to the company. There's only one company that can do this, get you in there. We let them know where we're at every night. If you don't check in, there's a emergency protocol that starts happening. We also did a 3-minute blog every single night. As things got tougher, we knew Keenan was listening to this blog, and we would minimize what was going on. So we tried to put a nice positive spin on it. A lot of times there was not a positive spin, but we would do that. And every 2 days we called Keenan on the satellite phone. That satellite phone was definitely our life link and a really important part of our trip. And it was interesting Chris put this in here for my notes, and it was so true. You do this, you're in Antarctica, you call on the sat phone, and then you're parenting from Antarctica. That was really odd. This is a great picture of Chris. This is what we looked like every day. So the contraption in front of us, that's our navigation device. It's really pretty primitive, actually. It's a compass mounted on a piece of plastic. So we're not out there staring at a fancy GPS every day. You're south. That's where I'm going. I'm going south. And it's interesting. Chris tended to drift to the right when she navigated, and I tend to drift to the left when I navigated. And by the end of the day, we'd always do about a mile too much, but it sort of balanced out. We'd be at the right point by the end of the day. So that mile extra every day was tough to take, though. We fought a lot of low visibility whiteouts. Out there are really mind-numbing. Whiteouts are very thick out there, and all you can do is stare at your compass. If you look up, you immediately get dizzy. That's how thick the whiteouts are. But much of the day, you're alone in your own words, in your own mind. We think about Keenan a lot. One of the things Keenan did before we left, I'm not sure if you can read that. Chris is reading this part.
So what he did is these are pogies. They're basically around your ski poles. They're like hand warmers that you put your gloves into to give you extra warmth. And he wrote on there, I love you. I know you can do this. And that was on both of ours. I had that. Marty had that. So even if whenever you're thinking about Keenan or you're thinking about your day, multiple times a day you see that and you can feel, Keenan's cheering you on. The other thing he did is, and he along with some other friends and family, but he wrote, next to where my head lay at night, and then where Marty's head lay at night, he wrote little messages to each of us on the tent. So we read that message every night, and oftentimes I'd read that and then pull out my iPhone, flip through pictures, imagine that we're all together. So meanwhile, Keenan was at home doing some other things.
So back at home, my parents had made a little notebook for me with messages for every single day that I could read. I had a lot of relatives come and stay with me. My Aunt Mel and Uncle Mike and Cousin Marcus came from Ohio for a week. And in the bottom photo there, if you can see it, there's a giant donut from George's Bakery. My Aunt Jean came from Alabama, and we baked Christmas cookies and made a snowman. School was an optional cancel, but she said, "I'm from Alabama, I'm not driving in the snow." A lot of my local people stayed with me, my Aunt Sue, Uncle Frank, and Lindsay and Ben. I started to miss my parents, but having family and friends watch me distracted me from them not being there and made me have a lot of fun while they were gone.
So by day 38 on our expedition, we had traveled 440 miles, skied 440 miles, and the last 75 of those miles were through what is called sastrugi. Sastrugi is frozen waves of snow. That's what this photo is, showing you some different versions of that. But basically, at its worst, it's like raging seas and the ocean that just flash freeze. And so sometimes it would be a foot, and then at other times it was up to 4 or 5 feet, where you could lose each other in the sastrugi. And you can imagine you're pulling the sled through this. It's a lot of fun because we're going against the grain. We're not going with the grain. We're going against it. So you're pulling over it constantly. Oh, and by the way, it's actually not flat. It actually, from the coast to the South Pole, is at 9,000 feet. So you're actually gradually pulling uphill every day. So that's an added benefit there. So staring at the map at this point, we had 75 more miles of what looked to be the sastrugi fields. And so really this was starting to be the low point, the start of the low point that seemed to last for a while of the trip, because we were really hitting low in our physical and mental strain. We had 1 day of rest. We were on day 38, 1 day of rest. Your regular life, you get the weekend off, right? So, and we were working hard, 10 hours a day, pulling these sleds. And it was really starting to wear thin on us. And one of the big issues for us is we were going slower than expected. We thought we would be going an average of 15 miles a day, and it just never averaged. We were closer to 13, and all of our food and fuel, everything was calculated based on this. So while we had planned on taking a rest day or two more, there was no resting. We needed to keep going because we had limited supplies with us. So we had to keep pushing on. One of the things that helped us tremendously during these times of mental and physical stress was knowing that these folks back home were cheering us on. And this is a photo, actually we're in the photo, and this is when we came back and presented to Keenan's school. But I put this in here because at this time we were hearing back that kids are following us. And we actually had a satellite phone call with Keenan's school I'm going to let Keenan describe this to you. What was that like, Keenan?
So the whole school was gathered into the gym, and they had like a phone hooked up to some speakers, and people would just stand up and ask questions, and they might have to be repeated to the phone. And people were just asking tons of great questions on how it was there, and it was really neat to be able to hear them and have everyone be able to hear them from there.
And he doesn't probably realize how much it boosted us to hear those kids' voices. And actually, the first thing they said when we got on the phone is they're like, we're just like, "Hi from Antarctica," and they're like, "Ah!" I mean, there was just like everybody went completely ballistic in this gym. I mean, and then we actually had the satellite phone likes to drop every so often, so we had to call back a couple times. And every time we called back, there was that same screaming mania going on. So it was really awesome. And these are the kids and our family and friends that all helped to kind of give us that final push to the pole.
That's you. Got it. Sorry. So by around day 48, oh yeah, now I know why we switched this. I was like, why did we switch this? So around day 48, we're about 7 miles from the pole. You can actually see the South Pole, and you'd think we'd be super excited by this time. It's right there, and you begin to realize why the polar explorers of old perished just a few miles from places, because we're exhausted and I'm not that excited, and so we're out of coffee. That could be one thing for 3 days, and my head is not feeling great. But we get up in the morning, and I put the wind meter out and the temperature, and it is 50 degrees below zero. So neither one of us have ever been in temperatures like this. We knew it was cold, obviously, when we woke up, and it felt devastating to us. And the best example of how devastating it felt is in the morning when you have to get going is the hardest part of the day, because you're kind of in a panic when you get out of the tent. You have to move really fast, and you want to get moving. And so I get dressed, and I'm the first one out of the tent, and I immediately almost fall over and realize something's wrong with my clothes. I jump back in the tent, and I'm going to shorten this way up because it was way more frustrating on a lot of curse words. But I realized somehow my underwear are still halfway down, but everything's pulled up over them, but my underwear are halfway down. So I have to get completely, at that point you're pulling off everything again to get redressed. I make even more mistakes after that too. We start off that day with just ice cold everything, and that actually set the tone for our whole day.
So the part Marty shortened up was that he kept saying to me, we started going, he's like, Chris, my face is freezing. It's freezing. Pull my balaclava up. Pull it up. I can't find it. And I'm like, you don't have it on. He had pulled his hood over. This is like the most critical piece of gear. And that was another, just something happened in his brain that morning. So anyway, he was digging and finding that, and then his hands were frozen for the rest of the day. So we didn't ever stop that day, never took a break, never ate any food. We just kept going because we were afraid, actually, of frostbite that day. So about 200 yards from the South Pole, the reason you can see the South Pole is because there's a giant South Pole scientific base there. It's a building. So that's why you can see it. It's called the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. So it's an actual building. You've saw nothing for all these days, and then there's this building. So we see it. We're almost there, and we decided, despite being so freezing, Marty says, well, let's pull over and pull the sat phone out. And it's Saturday, 10 a.m. in Seattle. Dial Seattle, or dial North Bend. My sister Sue answers. I don't even talk to her. I need to talk to Keenan. And so Keenan gets on the phone, and we say, Keenan, we're 200 yards from getting to the final destination. We want to share this moment with you. And I'm holding the phone between Marty and I, and we just all start crying. And, it was just the most amazing moment to be able to spend with Keenan before we're just literally actually arriving. And, I don't know what we would have done without that sat phone, but it was an amazing moment. So 5 flights and 5 days later, we arrived back in Seattle after standing at the South Pole. And as you can imagine, if any of you are parents, and even if you're not, just that pure joy to embrace Keenan and be back with him. I get choked up years later every time I think about this. He inspired us every day just by his own courage to, say, yeah, I'm okay. You can go do this. And his strength. And now Keenan's going to share a little bit about what he was thinking.
So I was in 6th grade at the time, and the whole time they were gone, it helped me to be more independent with homework, writing assignments, and to be more responsible for things that I was doing. It gave me more confidence in myself and my work. And after watching my parents do this, it's made me want to challenge myself more and do more big things.
So, what do you suppose is the most asked question after going to the South Pole? What's next? Oh, there's lots of questions when they're, after we describe the whole presentation, the whole detailed information, but what's next? What's next? And So one day, it was a couple years after we got back, a rowing machine ended up arriving at our house. And so Marty said, this would be really good for cross training. And so, or potentially, or in quotes he says, or, for a row across an ocean. And so I was like, huh. So we start doing some rowing, and as Marty gets into rowing, and I do too, one day he was rowing, and he kind of noticed this little something in his clavicle. It was like a pea-sized lump. And so we decided to get it checked out. And many visits to the doctor later, it was cancer.
Sorry to bring the crowd down.
This is kind of, just the way that you said that sponsor, I was like, holy crap. So they many scans later determined he has basal cell, they thought it was basal cell carcinoma in his lymph nodes of his neck. And so it was re-diagnosed as squamous cell carcinoma. So that was removed. He went through 6 weeks of radiation treatment. And we thought he was cancer-free. We thought, we dodged that. So then July of this year, he was just getting a rescan check. And they found that it had spread to his lungs. And so he has these very small tumors in his lungs. As you can imagine, this is quite devastating news. So,
This is the first time we've shared this outside of our family.
So, we spent. The way we're getting through this is because of all the adventures that we've had together. So we've learned so much by being together as a unified family that this is something that we didn't hide from Keenan. We told Keenan he's part of this story. In July, we decided, all right, we need to get serious and find the best experts that can help us figure out what we need to do. We spent months traveling around the country, meeting with different people, and then we decided that we would start immunotherapy. And the good news about immunotherapy is it's one of the most cutting-edge therapies that are happening in cancer, and it's not for all cancers, and luckily it is for the cancer that Marty has. He started that 3 weeks ago, and there's a lot of hope in people who are using immunotherapy. It does not have many side effects, and it's nothing like chemotherapy. And we're learning a lot about the amazing research that's going out there, and we should know if it's working for Marty in 2 months. And so Marty would like to talk a little bit. Oh, well, let's see, did I miss anything here? Yeah, I think I said everything.
Yeah, it's fine. I flip-flopped many times before I decided to talk about this, because I've only talked to it about with my family. So I don't want to, I need to hit the actually super positive points on this. So my cancer is very small. I have no side effects of it, no symptoms. 6 months ago, we had the scan, and in the last 6 months, it actually hasn't done anything. So for some reason, it decided to take a break, which is great. The important things Chris left out is if you ever need a cancer project manager, Chris is who you want. Not that I think she wants to do it again, but so she took complete control of this. I was initially diagnosed incorrectly. Chris was skeptical. She went to Massachusetts General. She went to Stanford. She went to Seattle Cancer Care Alliance. We ended up at Mayo, and Mayo reclassified it and classified it correctly. If that wouldn't have happened, I would have been doing something else that wouldn't have worked. So what's been great is that doing immunotherapy, I actually wrote this down today for the oncologist. In the past 3 weeks since I've done immunotherapy, I've ran 70 miles, I've done 900 push-ups, I've done about 50 chin-ups. So it's not having much of an effect on me. So it's amazing. Telling Keenan was one of the key things. We were completely open with him. It's going to be hard to say. The one thing he said was no matter what, in this first 15 years of my life, I've done more than most people do in a lifetime. So, you know. So, all right, enough about that.
So at the time that we were deciding what treatment to do, we had planned a trip to Nepal before we thought we had beat cancer. We were going to Nepal, and then we found out this other information. And so really this trip to Nepal was dangling out there, and we, up until about a few weeks before, we didn't know if we were going. And we regrouped, and we talked to our oncologist, and we said, he said, if you start a month later, Marty's cancer doesn't appear to be doing anything, you should still go. And so we decided to. So, this trip became kind of a shining star for us, because we knew what we would tap into when we got there from all these other trips that we'd taken. And we knew we needed that. We knew we needed that as a family. And as a, shot of, I like to think about it as the shot of medicine before taking the medicine. And so we had this fabulous time in Nepal, and we're not going to spend much time telling you about it, other than, the 8 days it took to get to Everest Base Camp. We were there in the off season. We did not see many people at all. It was as if we had this Everest experience to ourselves. It was like it was a gift to our family. We had the best guide, Dorje, and he is an ex-monk, and he had so much wisdom to share with us. We all ended up at the base camp, and we're all feeling quite emotional as a family, and people didn't really know why, but we knew why from what we were going through as a family. So this picture here is Dorje and Keenan hanging with the yaks. This is really, I just think the mindset we have to have as we move forward in our lives, whether you have something that comes up like we did or not, is that none of us know how long that we have here. And we need to take each day that we can't take our lives for granted, and we need to go out there and have this kind of experience with those that we love. Keenan's going to tell you a little bit about his experience here.
So when my parents told me, what do you think about hiking to Everest Base Camp, I originally thought, cool. I wasn't worried about it at all, and I trusted that my parents knew that it would be challenging, but that I could do it. We spent Christmas on the mountain there in a town called Namche Bazaar. We played cards with our guide Dorje and ate the local meal dalbat for dinner. Overall, I've noticed that some of the best times I've had with my family has been outdoors, and I hope I can have more of those times.
So we just want to conclude by saying it's been amazing to see Keenan grow from a child to a young man, outdoors man, follows our heart in becoming that. And to echo what Keenan said, we've really united as a family in the outdoors, and I think that power is there for any of us to tap into. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the Fagan family, and let's do some raffle. Okay, we have some Hello Robin cookies. Cookies that you wish your mom would have made. That's their motto. $3.63. Hello Robin is on Capitol Hill in Seattle if anybody wants to visit them. We also have from Ultraspire. Ultraspire builds community-based athlete-tested packs that feel good and work well while in action. $3.34. Okay, next up, we have some stuff from Territory Run Co., an independent trail running apparel brand created to empower the wild-hearted. They spend their time running through mountain and forest trails, sitting around campfires, and seeking what is wild and free. And they have some really cool gear, and you can check their company out online and buy from them there. $3.67. We have a few things from them. Okay, also from Territory Run Co., $2.95. Who's got $2.95? Anyone? Oh, yeah. Oh, Tom. And one last thing from Territory Run Co., $3.68. Yeah. Next up, we have some more stuff from Monster & Sea, the company that we were talking about. This one is $3.30. $3.30? Okay. I've seen you up here before. $3.41. What's that one? Monster & Sea, $3.43. $3.43? How about $3.49? Okay, last thing from Monster & Sea, $3.09. Monster & Sea, where are you, Troy? Thank you so much for supporting us. $3.25. This is from GSI. Okay, and that's a trail runner subscription, I think, right? Trail Runner Magazine is the only magazine dedicated to the off-road running community, encouraging runners of all ages and abilities to experience the outdoors and achieve a healthier lifestyle through off-road running. Trail Runner Magazine inspires and informs with accurate, intelligent, and in-depth writing and compelling photography. And speaking of, there's a person in the audience who has an article coming out in Trail Running Magazine next month, so be sure to pick up a copy. 340. Also, that article it features our local trail, Gsi Alps 100 miler, who there's another person in the audience who developed that trail. Or didn't develop it, but he created that route, and it's pretty cool. That's Georgia Roscoe. Right there. And from Northwest Outdoor Center, offering high-quality boating instruction and assistance, best known for its classes, rentals, and tours, has provided a certificate for 2 hours of paddling, $291. Last thing, right? And the last thing is from Evergreen Endurance, offers coaching for running, triathlon, cycling, duathlon, and swimming, but maybe of more interest to this group is support and training for adventures. Jess Kelly is the head honcho, and she could have been up here tonight. She just got back from a serious ski trip in Alaska where she was sleeping on a frozen pond overnight one night. No, thank you for the correction. She was not skiing. She was walking and pulling a sled. And running some, too. 323. Wait, 320. Oh, no. Someone has a ticket that I can't read the last number. Yeah, it's a hard one. If whoever has a 0, 3, or 8, 323, 0, or 8, you should raise your hand first. No one. Oh, no one has it anyway. Okay. We're going to go with 298. No one? No one? No one? No one? Yeah. Yay. Okay. Also, I want to mention motion.social. Their website address is motion.social, who has provided financial support for this event, which allowed us to offer tickets to children at a reduced cost of $10 per seat. This local company wants to help you plan to have fun. You can organize your group's fitness activities using motion.social. It's better than plain email, text, or generic planning tools. Check it out the next time you're trying to coordinate a group run, bike, paddle, swim, etc. Okay, so I think I can talk now. So the Fagan family, for more about them, you can check out 3belowzero.com, which has a lot of their information about their Antarctica ski. And also Chris owns her innovative consulting business, which focuses on unleashing creative potential. Through the website sparkfire.com, you can sign up for the free creative fitness program, which I've done, and I like it a lot. I think it's really a great tool to help you to think outside of the box and think about your creative potential. Think about your potential. So both of the families here tonight inspire me to reconsider what is possible. Both families have agreed to take questions too, so now everyone can come back to the stage. And I'm going to try something new for me and accept questions by text. It is after 7, and I do know that the event was supposed to end at 7, so no one's going to feel bad if you leave. So I will accept questions by text. Come on up, you guys. We're also happy to take questions that are just yelled out, but sometimes people don't like that.
There's seats over here.
Okay, so does anyone have a question that they want to ask while we're waiting. Favorite thing in your pack?
Who wants to answer? Oh, Cedric wants to answer it. Go for it.
Well, I think one of the favorite things in my pack would probably be,
The Snickers bar that I forgot about and then found, and then it was the best Snickers bar I've ever had in my life.
Probably the tent, because that's all I carried.
I had the best collection of Sharpie markers on the Appalachian Trail.
You maybe saw the picture in the slideshow where they were doing art and some snowing and a lot of creative projects. And we didn't even mention, but Duncan did a lot of drawing, and you saw some of his drawings in the slideshow too. And it was all on found paper.
I have a book that I either took pictures and printed them out of what I draw and posted on the shelter, or I kept them, and now they're all in this portfolio that I have.
I got to see it. It's pretty cool.
We weren't really carrying it.
There must have been something in your sled.
Yeah.
Your sled.
Sat phone.
Best thing in the sled is Pringles. So the runners of our sled, the cans of Pringles fit perfectly in the runners, and we had around 20 cans of Pringles.
17 chips a day.
Who's counting? Other questions? Oh.
Did you have something to say?
No, not yet.
No.
There was a question here.
Well, I just wanted to say, what was something that you missed, or like, what was the first thing you wanted when you came home?
Okay, well, when we arrived at the South Pole, what I wanted most was a chair.
Well, what I wanted most when I got back was probably, I think, my bed. What I wanted most would probably be to see my friends after I got off of doing 200 miles.
If it wasn't clear, Cedric went home before we got to the Smokies. He flew home from Atlanta, and he was very eager to get home.
This question is for Chris and Marty. Do you guys think you can let Keenan go to Tanzania?
Let him go, let him go.
Yes, I think it will happen. I just don't know when exactly. Yes, what about you?
Yes, he will.
Other questions? There's a pointer. Okay. Do you want to shout it out, or if there's another? Oh, okay. Yeah, Kate.
What was the biggest barrier in the process of planning to overcome?
School.
How
did you do it? Well, I'm a teacher, so I was able to do the course planning and stuff. Schools aren't real excited about alternative being gone and it, making it up. But yeah, that was probably the trickiest thing. But because I'm a teacher and because I just didn't care that much, I guess, I just felt like we were going to learn so much while we were gone. Katie was probably the hardest one because she was in high school. And Katie decided that the Appalachian Trail was more important and that homeschooling would be a great thing for her. And it actually changed the way she does education. She has been to Africa twice now. She's been to Europe twice. She's getting ready to go to school in Italy in the fall. It totally changed the way she saw her life and her education and where she was going. Do you want to say anything?
Nope.
Favorite food that you missed? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Favorite food that I missed? Probably chocolate.
We had chocolate.
I would say the one that I missed would probably be how about I think I would probably miss sushi the most.
Sushi, wow. Sense of taste. What were you guys going to say about the hardest?
He was going to say about. You were going to say the thing that was hardest, biggest challenge.
Yeah, the biggest challenge for us for the South Pole trip was probably there was just no how-to manual, so we just stuck our nose in every possible book on polar exploration that we could to try to figure things out. There wasn't that many people to talk to about it, and so. We went so far as I flew to Norway, and at one point I sat down to dinner for 3 hours with a Norwegian guy. They're the kings and queens of polar travel, and he wrote notes for me for 3 hours over dinner, and that was one of our most helpful things we did to get ready.
Are you going to create a manual?
No. I have a 40-page parenting manual, if anybody wants to see that.
Well, that's why I asked. I thought you were a pro. Okay, I'm going to just thank you once more. We do have a couple things for you. Our sponsors really thought that you guys were inspiring when we told them about you, and they sent us a lot of cool stuff to send you home with. So thank you for being here.
Wow. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to their stories. And I hope that you go ahead and feel inspired as you leave here and create a new massive adventure in your own life. So to close us out, Virginia has one thing that she would like to leave us with.
The food I miss is ice cream.
Thank you.
All right, we're done.
Thank you, everyone.
Katie, will you take this down? Yeah.